Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's December 13th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And we actually spent most of the early morning in a downtrend, and then from there we just kind of went sideways. There's a little bit of a bounce. There's a couple of legs up here before we turned down again, but I would just characterize this as a range from probably actually really starting from here. It really starts right in here, and you can see, but we were still kind of working down on the original. There's two trends. It's a spike in channel, and there's the spike down, and then we went into this flatter channel. We got a break there, and if you measure these, you can see we really had two legs down. We ended up meeting that target late in the day, but it took a while. It didn't look like we were going to get it here, but it's still two legs down, and then we corrected. And after the break and a couple of legs down, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to start a new trend in the other direction. Just seeing the market's going to correct for a while, usually an hour or so at a minimum, and that's really what we did. We just went sideways. That's the same thing, so that qualifies as a correction. We didn't trend down anymore. We actually trended up starting around 11 o'clock, and we really trended up into the 3 o'clock, and then we sold off. Actually, not 3 o'clock, but into about the 2:30 hour, and then we sold off after that. So that's the big picture. We'll back out here and go through the trades. You can see the volume and the volatility's dropped a little bit. Nothing like we were seeing, but there's still a lot of volume here, so it's still a lot of movement here. This was a pretty good downtrend. There's not a lot of trades today, but this was a pretty good downtrend with the opportunity to make some money early on, and then it got kind of limited in the afternoon. But there's still some trades there late morning, maybe only a couple in the afternoon. But let's get over here and zoom in and look at these trades. And early on, it looked like they were going to try to take it higher, but you can see it starts working down, and we're working on a second leg down here. What you're looking at on this first trade right here, 7 o'clock came right in here somewhere as we're dropping down here. So not much going on here early on. You can see there's very low volume. You can see there's not much volume in that overnight. You can see that. And you can see the market starting to slow down a little bit. We're getting in that time of year where it's probably going to continue to slow down. Doesn't mean we can't, something happen tomorrow and volatility goes nuts, so don't sell yourself out or always assume you know what's going to happen. But you would expect the volume to slow down this time of year. But anyway, we got a new high here. We're working down. You get a first entry, and you get a break higher here that turns down for just a second before it goes higher again and then turns down. I wouldn't take a failure right here because that looks sideways, but when it breaks higher again right here and fails, there's also a little second entry short. It still looks like congestion, so it's really just a chance to get short up here as long as you got room to scalp out. And you really could treat that like two legs down and a failure still. It's not really technically by the counts, it's not, but it's probably still going to act like a trap. So I like going short there. When it breaks higher again, I like this trade better in most cases, except for the support across there. You can see there's some support right across there. And so that's a little concerning. You see that support? We are below it here, but we're still not below that low. It is a lower high, and it is a very bearish bar. So if we break lower there, we're probably headed back down to here and to test this close from Friday around the opening. So that's where you would assume prices are probably going, but you never want to trade on assumptions. You want to get a good setup, and you want to know there's proof, and that does confirm that trend line too. So also the only other thing you might look at is the measured moves here, but you can see there's not a lot of room left, but there's probably still enough to scalp out there. You just want to be sure you got it. This was actually the engulfing bar. I don't know if I would trade it on the engulfing. I'd wait for this to close, and I'd probably let it break lower and drop my limit order a tick or so back, which you could have got filled on that. and then it just drops on down. It takes a minute, but the bottom just drops out of this thing. And so you may or may not have got a runner on that depending on how you managed it. If you move your stop to BE +1, you probably got stopped out on it. And I did mark that one green, but it's real close. It's just a little dangerous going short into that support. So I marked it green. Here you got plenty of room. Here, not so much. So, but we drop on down, and you got another little channel working down here. This kind of grayish one. You get a close outside, move to a new low. But we still don't have a break of this one yet. So you got to be real careful. And of course, we get the break here. We come up short. We actually touched here, but it continues down. So that's telling you the market's bearish, because we should have went back to the other side, even if it was only sideways. And it got all the way down here before it corrected. And notice you got a new low, and you get a first entry and then a second entry. And look how bearish that bar is. Go short right there. And of course, it runs to a new low, corrects a little more, and you actually get a second entry short right there. And that one's tempting, but you can see that little sideways stuff, that congestion. And if you went short right there, you get stopped out only to see it go exactly where you think it's going to go. And then again, it's tempting here, but you can see you got to go short right there at the lows, and you see how it bounces. It's probably going to pop back, even if it's going to go lower. And so just wait a minute, and then you get this clear setup with a very low risk, 6 ticks, and it drops, and you get a runner out of that one, and it just takes off. So just be patient. This is where you got to be real careful on these corrections. I don't see anything. There is a failure here, but you're way away from the EMA. You're not even back to the trend line, really. Drops on down. We get a correction. There's another failure here, but it doesn't really set up good. This is almost a repeat pattern of this one, but this is not a very good signal bar, and you're in another little congestion area here. But it makes a new low finally. You push up, you get a first entry, it shoots through, you pull back, you get a second entry, it fails. Even if this trend line's valid, which we pretty much got a confirmation right there, but even if it's valid, you probably got room here. And this, I guarantee you, this traps some shorts. And you might have gone short there. I don't think I'd go short there. It just looks like prices are wanting to go higher, and so they're probably going to run a trap in here. If you took that, it works. But I would be hesitant, because you're expecting prices, again, we're just off the low, so you would expect prices to go back to the high. And as long as you got room there, you might trade this trap. And it does work. Pulls up, and you make this new, you get a break, of course, and then you get the new high, and then you try to go higher once. You push down, you try to go higher twice, and it fails. Generally, you want this to set up on the other side of the EMA. However, this closes on the other side, so if it breaks below that, we're probably going to drop on down. And it does. I don't know if you probably could have got a runner on this one too, and it runs down, it runs pretty hard. So then of course we bounce off the low side and we head back to the high again. Again, there's just a first entry right there. There's a second entry here, but we're not back to the trend line. You haven't had a retest of the high on this. I would be real hesitant. I'd at least wait on a failure, and by doing that, you don't get trapped and you see it goes higher. I don't see any shorts here I really like until, notice you make a new high and you push down. You got to go higher once, twice. So there's your failure. If it breaks below there, you can see they trapped everybody, and they all had to. That's what that big bar is that runs down. So that's another great trade, another great trap. There's actually a second entry short here. It's convoluted, but look how congested that looks. And we could bounce. We've got a break here and a new low in place, so we could bounce at any time. So wait on something better than that. And you do get a first entry, second entry. It's still a little congested, but the low is much further down. So that's a fairly bearish bar on a second entry. You probably take that one. It's real close. You could argue for it to maybe be green because of the congestion. But this has been a pretty strong downtrend. It is a second entry, and it is a fairly decent signal bar. So, but you can see it doesn't go very far, and then we start chopping sideways. You got to be careful down here looking for a long. You can see there's been a couple of times you would have gotten trapped. You wouldn't have gotten stopped out of either one of these big nice signal bars, but you just got to be careful, going long into the EMA in a downtrend. Now, if this was all sideways, I wouldn't be too worried about that EMA. But in a downtrend with it still pointing down, you don't want to go long into that EMA. So just wait. And of course, it does bounce. And we end up, there's a range here. You can see that clearly. It's tempting to go short right here, but I'm not convinced this time. There actually is a little bit of a trend up here, like so. And you do get a close outside a new high, but I'd wait on a lower high here to be safe. And you get it there, but not a very good setup, and then it just drops down. But notice it makes the low. It tests it once, it tests it twice, and you get this nice signal bar. Now, somebody will probably ask me about this one. What about this one? That's a very nice signal bar, but look at that congestion. That's not what you want to see is rejection off these lows, and that is not rejection. That's prices just hanging around down there. Even with that nice signal bar, notice it breaks higher and goes lower before it turns back up. But here, that's what rejection looks like when it bounces and goes straight up. So now obviously it could look like rejection here and still go sideways. So, but here, by the time you get that bar, you know that's not rejection because you can see prices are just hanging around. So sometimes you don't get any warning, sometimes you do. Here you got the warning. Here there's no warning, so you just got to say, hey, are we going to go higher here? But notice the triple test, and that probably makes it worthwhile. We made the low right here. We tested it again when we came back, and we tested it a third time. And you got a nice bounce. There's a lot of room back to the EMA. Doesn't matter because it just takes off. Look, I mean, you can see the support or the buying coming in, but you just got to, your timing's everything. So you just got to wait on the right setup, and you want to see rejection. This is not rejection of prices. This is not really rejection of prices. Even with that great looking reversal type bar, there's no rejection. See what happens? You probably get trapped there. They wouldn't have stopped you out, but you know, who wants to risk riding that out and maybe getting stopped out and only missing it by a tick? So we run up, you get a break, couple legs up to a new high, and then we're dropping again. And again, there's no setup for a short. You make that low, and then you get a first entry, second entry. Look how bearish that bar is. It's really big, but it's super bearish. Second entry short. You're expecting a retest of this low at a minimum, and it takes it a minute, but it drops on down. You get that lower high right here with another big bearish bar, and again, it drops on down. There's actually a failure right here, but by the time that failure sets up, this just looks too congested. Here, it looks like they've got people trapped, but it never really acts like a trap till here. But by that time, it's just so congested. I think you could actually argue for that to be green. But I just think if you didn't enter here, I don't think by the time it just went sideways like that, I don't think I enter here. And then we run up here. There's technically a first entry, second entry right here, but obviously you can't go short there, and it looks like a failure. But I think I would wait because this just looks like one leg up. So then there's your second leg up, and then there's your failure right there. I marked it green because technically the way the count would be, it doesn't count as, but this just looks like one leg up. And you can see there, it doesn't really look like a couple of legs up there. It looks like one leg up, correction, second leg up, second entry short, and it fails, and boom, it goes higher. And I marked it green because it's a little more advanced, and it's by the counts, it's a little different. So we run up, and we just keep going higher, but we don't really get a setup here to go long. And even here, you finally get a second entry, and you don't get a signal bar, and that takes us into 2:30. So really kind of limited in the afternoon. Some pretty good trading until about 11 o'clock, and then wasn't much happening after that. And you can see how few bars there are this afternoon from 11 o'clock on. Most all the volume was in the morning. So we're starting to slow down. But anyway, there's another look at it. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to wrap it up. But just a reminder that this is probably going to be my last week to work for this year. I'm going to work this week, and then I'm going to take off the rest of the year, the first couple of days into the new year. So just want to start giving everybody heads up so it doesn't catch you off guard when you don't see the YouTube lessons those last couple of weeks of the year. So the market will get real slow, and definitely don't try to trade during the holidays. It's not a very good time. I mean, you could come in and sim trade, but I wouldn't recommend trading live, especially between Christmas and New Year's. There might be some movement, but you just got to be real careful. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next